Hello everyone, I'm currently in Helsinki and today I'm visiting the Museum of Malware Art. With me is Mikko. So can you tell us what this big red heart here is?
Well, this is an art piece built by Kasper Hildén and Hugo Lankinen. It's called Click for Love. And this sculpture, made out of computer mice, was inspired by one of the largest email worm outbreaks in history. That's the love letter or I love you outbreak of 2000. And this email worm arrived to your computers over email with an email with the subject field I love you, and then the email contents said, please see the attached love letter coming from me, and there's an attachment called loveletterforyou.txt.vbs. And VBS is Visual Basic Script. If you double click on the attachment, you just got infected. And now the malware is going to go to your Outlook. This is on your Windows computer. It goes to your Outlook and goes to your address book and sends the same email to everybody in your address book. And the sender of that email is you. So you are going to send a love letter to your bosses, to your neighbors, to your mother-in-laws. And they will be surprised or, I don't know, mystified and curious, and they will click on the attachment, and now they're going to send it to their friends and family and everyone else. And this became exponential very, very quickly. So the artists were inspired by the act of clicking. That's why this art piece is called Click for Love. And we crowdsourced the mice from our customers and users from around the world. There's 827 mice here. The artist used a special software to calculate the volume of one mouse, which was then used like a 3D pixel. The software gave instructions on how to actually render this, like where to put the holes in the roof and how long cables for every single mouse. And the end result is this big red heart. Please don't touch it. If they get mangled, it's really hard to unmangle.
Have you clicked on it? Did you receive it?
We actually got the emails into our email system in this company in 2000, but we didn't get infected. One of our employees remembers the story. Kim, who's still working for us today, remembers that in the morning of the outbreak, he got the email from his girlfriend, which is, you would probably think about clicking on that, but he immediately realized that, hold on, there's something wrong here. Like, she wouldn't send an email like this, and why is it in English and all that? And he realized that this has got to be an attack, and then we analyzed it and realized that yes, it's an email worm outbreak.
So what are all those screens here about?
So we call this the virus archive, and this really is the historical part of the museum. We are trying to showcase old viruses that are important in malware history. However, we have really focused here on viruses which are visible to users. Now, many of the viruses played music, but didn't show anything. Many of the viruses were destructive and would destroy your files, but they wouldn't really say you anything at all. These are the ones that you could actually see. And most of these are from 1990s. The oldest ones we represent here are from 1987. The newest ones are almost current. But for example, this is a great example. This is the ambulance car virus from 1990. Back then, the operating system we were all running was MS-DOS, and when you got infected with the ambulance car virus, it would sometimes show you this car. And this virus actually was written in Germany. We found this in 1990. And randomly, when you would run an infected program, for example a game, instead of the game starting, you would first get this ambulance car running across your screen. It would also make a sound, but we've turned off the sound over here. So it would run an ambulance car across your screen, and then the game would start. If you would run the game again, you wouldn't see the car. It would randomly show it on your screen. Pretty much the same phenomenon repeats in many of the other viruses here. So this is Mars Land from 1997. Pretty nice, like graphical, like demo that you see sometimes when you run infected files. Sometimes there are messages, like in the marine virus, which has a message in Russian. Sometimes you get animations. This is the Lichen virus from 1994. The Abraxas from 1993 shows this ANSI art picture. And we've recorded some of these with DOSBox, which is an emulator that you can run old MS-DOS programs in. Some of these have been recorded from real, actual infected computers. So we went and infected real computers and used a video camera to get the effect. Those we've done in cooperation with a YouTuber called Danoct1. He has a really popular YouTube channel where he collects videos as he infects machines with old malware. People are surprisingly interested in old viruses, and that's what we've learned as we've showcased these here as well.
With all these art pieces here, do you have a favorite art piece, a favorite malware in this museum?
Out of the virus archive, I guess my favorite is Casino. It's a tough choice because the very first virus I got infected with myself is represented here as well. It's the crew virus right here, which we found in 1991. I had no idea I had it on my machine until it showed these messages, which it sometimes brings up on screen. But I guess my favorite has got to be Casino. Casino virus we found early on in the 1990s, and it would infect your system, and then on 3 dates of the year, on the 15th of January or April or August, when you boot up the computer, the machine doesn't start normally. Instead, the virus activates. It takes a copy of your file allocation table. That's the information in the beginning of your hard drive about where all the directories are. And it would take a copy of that in memory, and then it would wipe over the file allocation table, which means you just lost all your files. And then it shows you a message explaining to you that I've just wiped your file allocation table. However, I have a copy in memory and I can write it back to your disk, meaning that you recover all your files. And now it gives you 5 chances to play a game. Gives you 5 credits. And then you can actually play a game. It explains here, Disk Destroyer, a souvenir of Malta, because this virus was written in Malta. And you can actually win this game. Right now in this video I'm trying to play this jackpot, and if I get 3 pound signs in a row, I'm going to win. And then it will really recover my files. If I don't get the jackpot, it's just going to hang the machine, which means you lost your files. And if you don't play, if you just reboot the machine, you automatically lose, because it's already destroyed the files. It just has a copy of the allocation table in memory. And when I was recording this video, I had a hard time losing, because it really is random. I think I played it 4 times and I won every time, and I really wanted to get a video of me losing. So that's what happens in the video here.
So malware developers also have a sense of humor, I guess.
I guess they have a sense of humor, although I think the people who were infected with Casino at the time were not laughing.
What is the oldest malware you have in this museum here?
It's Cascade. Cascade was an MS-DOS virus which was what we call a TSR virus. That's terminate and stay resident. It means that when you run an infected program, the virus loads in memory and it stays in memory. So every time you run another file, regardless of what it is or where it is, if it's on a floppy disk or in a different folder, every time you run a file, it's going to infect that file. Another thing it accomplishes by staying running in the background on the system is that it can do effects. So during the last 4 months of the year, when you work on an infected computer, you randomly get this effect where it starts dropping letters from your screen to the bottom of the screen. And of course, people in 1987 were mystified, like, my computer is broken, like why are letters dropping to the bottom of the screen? Again, it was trying to be funny or to play tricks with the user, but this is what many of the early viruses did. And another case here which is interesting is this is VCL, Virus Creation Laboratory. This is from 1992. And this is not a virus. This is a virus generator. So this is a tool for people who want to create viruses but don't know how to program. So it actually gives you a user interface where you can select different options. I want to create a virus which infects files like these, which does these kind of effects on these dates. So for example, when the hard drive is more than 50% full and it's in the afternoon, then do this. So it automates the creation of viruses, and we saw hundreds and hundreds of viruses made with this tool. Thankfully, detection of all the viruses made with tools like these was pretty generic.
As you might remember from my earlier videos I made about my studies, I've studied chemistry before computer science, and I've studied it in Marburg. Do you have a story about Marburg?
Well, we have a virus called Marburg, which is named Marburg because it was found from Marburg, most likely written in Marburg, maybe in the university. And this is from the Windows 95 era, which many of us still remember. And it infected Windows 95 systems. It was actually infecting screensaver files and Windows executables. And the way it spread from one computer to another was when people were exchanging programs. For example, giving a copy of a screensaver to someone else. You could move these around on floppies or email them or whatever. It wouldn't spread by itself. It required users to swap these files, but it was enough for this to go around the world. And then when it has infected your Windows system, it escapes detection by using polymorphic encryption. So every single infected file looks different. There is not a single constant byte in constant location between two infected samples. This is how they tried to avoid detection. The way we detected polymorphic encryption viruses at the time was with emulation. We were using emulation technologies already in 1990s, so we would basically run the malware code inside an emulator on the fly as we were scanning the hard drive. So if we found suspicious code, we would automatically execute inside a virtual environment the code, so it would decode the malware for us to scan it, because the polymorphic encryption always then ended up decrypting the actual malware code. So we weren't trying to crack anything. We would actually use the malware against itself to detect it. And the way people knew they were infected with Marburg was with these signs, these stop signs it would post randomly on your Windows screen. And these started appearing 3 months after the initial infection. So initially when you get infected, everything works, you don't see anything, but then after 3 months, your Windows is filled with error messages.
So a very long incubation time.
Yeah, it's a long incubation time indeed, but it works. If it would immediately tell you I'm here, then the malware wouldn't spread anywhere.
Okay, and now we are looking at pictures that seem to be AI generated. Are those AI generated?
Yes, but there is a twist. This art piece is called Cyberwar. It's done by an artist called Greg Linares. Greg is an old school security guy. He's been around from the 1990s. The work here is based on a special environment he built, which actually input to this system is malware samples. So Greg's system eats malware samples. It automatically reverse engineers the malware samples and then uses a large language model to create English language descriptions of different functions inside the malware code. Those descriptions are then fed into an image generator algorithm modified by Greg, which is built on top of Stable Diffusion, and the end result are the images we see here. And the samples Greg used for this art piece are all samples written by the military intelligence of Russia, and they've all been used against Ukraine in the Ukrainian war. So for example, the malware sample that created this image is In Destroyer, which is the piece of malware which has cut power, cut electricity in Ukraine several times during the war. And these images we've then printed on aluminium, so that's why the light reflects so nicely out of these art pieces. So they are AI generated, but they all represent real code, in this case used in real war.
So they are printed on aluminum?
That's right, and it was a bit challenging. We were working with a printing agency, and when we got the original master images from the artist, I thought they were really high resolution. They were 4,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels. But the printing house got back to us and said, no, we need much higher resolution if you really want to print it on metal. So we asked Greg to re-render them, and we got the end results in 12,000 pixels by 12,000 pixels. And these are the largest JPEG images I've seen in my life, but the end result is pretty amazing.
And what is this spider we are currently looking at?
Well, this is a sculpture made by an artist called Joey Holder, which has been inspired by ransomware. It's called Araneomorph, and the artist was inspired by ransomware to create several different interpretations of what ransomware really feels like when you get infected. So it's made out of wood and bronze, and then we have this spider on top of it. And the reason why Joey used bronze is that over time bronze oxidizes. So right now it looks like nice, bright, shiny metal because it's brand new, but in a year it's going to be oxidized, it's going to turn green. And it sort of symbolizes how data corrupts over time. And then there's a hidden message. Here on top of this sculpture we see this hieroglyph-like scripture, and there's a message encoded inside that image. However, before encoding the message, as the last step, the artist used a one-way hash, which means there is a message, but there is no way to recover the message. No one will ever be able to decrypt the message from there, which was her way of symbolizing how information is locked away by a ransomware attack.
And what are we looking at here?
Well, it's an interactive art piece by Iiko Kuusela. It allows the visitors to the Museum of Malware Art to catch malware with their own hands. There's a sensor here, and users can move their hand here and actually grab a malware from mid-air. Then the system will detect that, and it will render a unique piece of malware for every visitor. It uses AI to create the description, a name, and an image of the malware. And then visitors have 20 seconds to download it onto their phone, which is actually safe. It's not real malware, it's just a simulation. But this is a nice way of people interacting with the whole phenomenon and do something by themselves and create new pieces of art.
Okay, so I will create my own piece of malware now. Just here and grab it.
Let's see. Keep it. And you got a backdoor JS shellcode G1. Congratulations, it's beautiful.
So if you want to create one of those yourself, come to Helsinki and visit the Museum of Malware Art. So now it's time for some music. What can you tell us about it this year?
Finland is the heavy metal capital of the world. There's more heavy metal bands per capita than anywhere else in the world. And my favorite band is a band called Master Boot Record, which makes cheap metal or cheap heavy metal music. Actually, the band is from Italy, but of course in the museum we wanted to showcase the band because in 2018 they released a full album of music inspired by old viruses. The album is called Virus.dos. We have the actual record here as a vinyl, and visitors to the museum can actually listen to the track. We have an old iPod, and they can enjoy cheap metal, heavy metal music here, just getting a glimpse for themselves of what it really sounds like when a piece of art is inspired by viruses.
Yeah. So now we have heard a lot about malware, but have you ever written malware for yourself?
Actually, I haven't. You don't really need to write malware to be able to analyze malware. And it's never been something that I would have been interested in. But my viewpoint in the creative properties of malware really has changed. Early on in my career, when I would analyze malware, I didn't see any beauty or any art or any creativity in malware at all. It was sort of like seeing dirty tags on the side of the streets. But over the years I've learned to appreciate that there really is creative process there on the other side as well, and we have to appreciate that, and that's one of the things we're trying to do here in the Museum of Malware Art. There is history here. It has to be recorded, and the history of our time can only be recorded by us. It has to be done now or it will be lost forever.
So Mikko, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the Museum of Malware Art.
And if you want to come to the Museum of Malware Art too, just visit it if you are in Helsinki. The address is in the video description down below, and see you next time.